Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio and now powered by our first sponsor, TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. You all have to buy tires from somebody. You might as well buy them from us. Help fund the movement, help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I am your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota, for episode number 68. I gotta start looking at that before we start. Sorry, guys. I'm still going through the genuine growing experience of the whole podcast game. I get right up to start time and I go, what episode are we on here? I believe it's episode number 68, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, we want to thank all the returning subscribers. We want to thank all the returning listeners and viewers all over the world here in the great nation of the United States of America. Happy Independence Day. A day late. I hope everybody enjoyed Independence Day yesterday. I got to see some fireworks, hopefully. Got to hang out with the family, barbecue. Traditionally, that's what we do. In my family or in my town, we definitely had a big sort of family barbecue last night, and it went well. A lot of kids were there. It's great to see the kids growing up together and celebrating the nation and the nation's history. And even if they don't understand the nation's history, it's always good to see young people come together, really the kids, the real young, but all people, but especially the young kids come together and be able to play and enjoy the fireworks and play basketball and whatever else on family holidays. COVID really threw a monkey wrench in that, and I think it made all of us appreciate a little bit more what it means to come together and celebrate our history, celebrate the holidays, celebrate our families and all of our other relatives and the things that we cherish. So happy Independence Day to everybody out there. I want to thank Professor Penn for doing such a great job standing in for the podcast. I know the last couple we had a little bit of audio issues. We're hoping that that's solved today. We turned up the gain, and the problem with turning up the gain on the mixing board is that it creates this sort of scratch and pop that me personally I don't like to hear in the audio. But we understand that people are maybe trying to listen to the podcast in places where there's other noise happening. Some people say they listen to it at work. Some people say they listen to it riding in their car. Maybe they have a job as a trucker or whatnot. And even the sound of the car itself, especially a big truck, a big rig, can hinder the ability to hear the podcast if it's not turned up, the volume's not high enough. Or maybe you have a family and you listen to the podcast when the kids are running around the house later on in the evening after work or whatever the case may be. So we want to accommodate that, and please continue to give us feedback when it comes to the audio. So we can better understand from a production standpoint what things are important to the viewers and listeners, and what things can be improved, and also what things are the priority. Maybe you guys can deal with some of that scratching and hissing noise at the expense of the audio being loud enough to listen to and adverse listening conditions. So. We're trying to address that. I hope everybody is good with the audio today. Again, drop comments if the audio is still too low. Again, to thank Professor Penn for standing in. He'll continue to sit in a number of times here as I travel back and forth to the Big Three. I hope everybody enjoyed the last episode I was here talking about Ice Cube and his Fuck the Gatekeepers podcast tour that he's been on. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. I think he did a great job on Rogan, and I think he's going to continue to do a great job going forward. This weekend we'll be in New York City at Barclays Arena for the Big Three. If anybody is interested in catching a game or watching a game live, they're really fun. I mean, they're a lot of fun. The half-court game is a completely different game. I think Ice Cube did a great job of constructing a half-court game of basketball that's very entertaining and very interesting and hyper competitive as well. It's definitely much more physical than the NBA in some good ways. In some ways, it gets a little crazy out there and we just start wrestling and throwing each other around. But I kind of like that aspect of it, being I'm a mixed martial artist and whatnot. A little wrestling or grappling never hurt anybody, as we say in the gym. But the games are very entertaining. I hope some people will either come and see it live in the Barclays this weekend and support Ice Cube and everything he's trying to do with the league and fighting back against the establishment and the gatekeepers. And that's not just for black people, it's for everybody out there in America. We're living in a time where the few individuals who branch out and are independent and have the balls and courage to step up and fight back against the establishment really represent the interest of us all. They really represent the value of our citizenship and the future of our children. That is the case for many people besides Ice Cube, but basketball and sports is a huge piece of American culture, and it's certainly become a huge piece of the mainstream media industrial complex and the ability to put out propaganda and brainwash our young people, but even more so all people. So come out and check out the Big Three this weekend if you're in New York City. You can always tune in on to CBS and see a couple of games, or you can watch on YouTube. I think the other games that aren't on CBS are streamed live on YouTube, so that's an option as well if you want to watch. And we thank Professor Penn for sitting in. He's done a great job. I mean, I hope you guys are getting to know the great Professor Penn and some of the great things about the way Professor Penn thinks that I've come to respect and admire and enjoy and find valuable for myself in this journey as a young person who is limited to the information that I can gather with the sources that are out there, and in my own short-lived experience. All of our information is limited, right? Everybody's information is going to be limited somewhat. And the beautiful part about a community, or the beautiful part about a tribe, a group of people who have shared interests and shared views or shared goals, shared desires, is to pool information and to make sure, or to try and see if information lines up, trying to piece that puzzle together, because we are in an information war. We've been in an information war for a long time, but we're certainly in a heightened information war now, and the ramifications of piecemeal information are higher than ever. The stakes are higher than ever. So I hope you all appreciate Professor Penn. Please go subscribe to his podcast. Continue to make that a regular listen for you if you haven't already. On Tuesdays and Thursdays is when his podcast premieres. Stay tuned for the release or the launch of Hebrews, which would be a podcast with myself and Professor Penn, I think once a week. The Last Renaissance podcast is on the way with myself and AJ Barker, and there may be a few more. We want to continue. We're going to start to dump out content, especially as we get closer and closer to this 24 election, because all the marbles, this one's for all the marbles, so to speak. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on today. So strap in. We're going to have a great episode. I hope you're happy to see my yellow face again. I know I miss you guys. I mean, I miss the ability to be able to sit here and just share my thoughts on the things going on in the world, and then to be able to tune in to the live chat and see your feedback. Tune in to Getter, the War Room's live stream on Getter, which we thank the great Mo Bannon and Grace Chong and Steve Bannon for continuing to stream the podcast live on Getter's War Room's Getter page. We love the entire War Room posse, and we love the entire MAGA audience. I know that's going to be hard for some people to hear. Some of you are still under the auspices, or not the auspices. Some of you are still under the impression that the MAGA movement is most central a white supremacist movement, and if you're starting from that viewpoint, that vantage point, I just got to say to you honestly, as trying to be helpful, you gotta go back to the drawing board. You're way off. You've been brainwashed. You're listening to too much Morning Joe, Cuck Joe, and Morning Mika, or Joy Reid, or whoever else. You got to go back to the drawing board, because really, again, we are in a very, very distinct fight now between globalists and nationalists. And that's not to say there aren't some globalists who are decent people. They may just be brainwashed in this whole kumbaya of global citizenship and cooperation and peace and equality and all these other buzzwords made to sort of, create this synthesis of faux community, global community. And it's not to say that there aren't nationalists out there who aren't terrible, terrible people, who aren't predatory, who aren't manipulative, who aren't um, technocrats, who aren't scientists, scientism, people who are obsessed with science. All of the different, there are nationalists out there who are not people we should follow or associate with as well. But the premise that nationalism generally, centrally, is a white supremacist movement or ideology is nothing further from the truth. And in that same vein, just to speak in a more general sense about the difference between globalism and nationalism, this kind of segues right into what I want to talk about today because I didn't get a chance to after being on the road. And then when I came back, the Ice Cube thing was so pertinent that we had to discuss that. I want to go back and talk about this submarine deal. And I want to highlight the difference between nationalism and globalism in talking about this submarine deal. And you often hear me reference this sort of neoliberal, neoconservative, yuppie, posh, omnisexual, cosmopolitan, world traveling, white woman. Okay, we could say it like that, but there's a bunch of people that fall into this camp. That is this sort of globalist motif, right? And there are a lot of different archetypes. There are a lot of different personalities. There are a lot of different combinations of worldview, of people, of demographic that could fall into that camp. And it's not by mistake. That's what it's meant to be. It's meant to be a sort of hodgepodge amalgamation of the broadest group possible of identity politics. And that's exactly what it's become. But there are some very key distinguishable characteristics within it. And one of them that I've started to realize is this sort of abandonment of caution, right? And you could also look at that as or see it in this sort of thrill-seeking phenomenon that is now so prominent and visible through social media. And I'm not, there have always been thrill seekers. There's always been people who skydive or mountain climb or building climb or base jump or cave dive or scuba dive or deep sea adventure or whatever the case may be. There's always been people like that. There's always been the evil Knievels and the motocross, there's always been adrenaline junkies. But now we're getting a real good look at it. We're getting a real good look into that psychology through social media. I think people are posting stuff like that now more than ever. And one of the phenomenons that really bothers me, it's on the lower end, the lower level of things, but it's probably much more common than some of the others, is just this sort of sports car, sort of race car, modify my sports car, race car with all the little gadgets and gadgets. And now I'm driving 100 miles per hour or 120 miles per hour on the E-way or the freeway, getting pulled over. There's a couple people I know even. It's no disrespect to them. I mean, I get it. Every American man likes a good American muscle car and a lot of horsepower. I get it. Don't get me wrong. I may, in fact, myself buy a Hellcat. I certainly won't be going 100 or 120 miles per hour. I know it's really easy to do that in those cars. And, maybe I'm just Americanized because in Germany, hey, they have freeways where there is no speed limit. And, the Autobahn is infamous for its German ingenuity and the German cars that are very well constructed vehicles, automobiles as well, that speed around on the Autobahn. People travel to Germany just to be able to drive a car on the Autobahn. And hey, I'm okay with that. But, the point that I'm making, or that I'm trying to make, is there's like a common thread growing amongst people that the simple beauty of life is not enough. And I think it shows a very significant lack of gratitude. be grateful that you even draw breath. Be grateful that you even woke up this morning. And it sounds cliche, but when you really look at people's choices in their life and the things they choose to do in their life, it becomes very clear that that gratitude is missing. And when you go down to the roots, which we like to do on the show and which I like to do in my cultural analysis, whether it's on my show or whether it's on War Room or InfoWars or Fearless with Jason Whitlock, I like to go to the deepest root when we make a cultural analysis, because it's very easy to get bogged down in any number of topics and these top layers that sort of in all intents and purposes are meant to distract you from the fundamental issues, the root issues. And when you address issues, you must address them at the root. We see that in medicine. We see that with health. We see that in relationships. We see that with education. We see that, when you teach a kid math, you can't start off with calculus, right? I mean, maybe you could for some savants. Maybe you could start off with calculus. I don't even know. But hey, I wouldn't do it. Okay. That wouldn't be my method. And when I teach a kid basketball, I don't start off by teaching them, spin moves and trick shots. We start off by teaching the fundamentals. When you teach somebody in MMA, remember when I first started MMA, I started off in a foundations class. And in the foundations class, the teacher is able to, or the sensei, coaches are able to assess whether or not you can perform the basics, how familiar and comfortable you are with the basics, and then you can advance to the more serious levels within the academy. That's certainly how we do it at the Minnesota Mixed Martial Arts Academy. But it's true of everything. And it's not to say that some people don't advance quicker than others. And it's not to say that we should try and create an fake equality where people can't advance much faster than others. There are people who are going to advance faster than others. And that's the foundation. That idea is the foundation of what has come to be known as meritocracy, which America is supposed to be a bastion of, and corporate America is supposed to be a bastion of, and sports is supposed to be a bastion of, and so on and so forth. But the simple things that we've started to just take for granted culturally. And I think when you look at something deep enough, that foundational worldview, you can see where technology and science has become the tip of the spear for corporatized society, a hyper-corporatized society, a corporatocracy, as I like to call it. And science and technology has become the tip of the spear. And science and technology, the growth of science and technology has slowly but surely eroded the gratitude that we should have for the most simple things. And it's promoted, by those out there who are uber technology or super pro technology, whatever you want to say. It's promoted that, hey, no, technology allows us to appreciate the simple things at an even higher level, right? We have a camera now that has that you can film in 120 frames and get very, very close to a drop of, and film in slow motion, a drop of water fall off of a plant. Or you can see a bee up close and film a bee and then show it to the world. That's sort of the National Geographic piece. And I use that as a reference because there is where technology and science come together with Mother Nature and show you something that you should appreciate, kind of gives you a look into the wonder of Mother Nature. But, let's just be honest. National Geographic and this sort of a technological appreciation for the small, minute details of Mother Nature are in no way the common use of technology and science. Maybe I'm off track here, but what I'm trying to really get to is, when did we become so fascinated with risking our lives to do stupid shit? Now, I feel bad for the people who went down on the submarine and rest in peace to their souls. Hopefully God will have mercy on their souls and they'll be allowed to enter the kingdom of heaven. that's in God's hands now. And I feel bad for their families, and I feel bad, right? We always should feel some sense of remorse when we encounter death. I think people who are very comfortable around death is a sign that they are disconnected from the reality of being a divine creature, or a creature with divine grace and charity, and a piece of divinity in us, right? We were made in God's image. There's a piece of divinity in that alone. And I think the great A.J. Barker alluded to this in one of the podcasts on Rules for Retrograde, that it's not natural for human beings to die. And we can't really see that because the arc of our history as a species goes right back to the garden and original sin. And so it's hard for us to reconcile that it was never meant for human beings to get old and die. That's not, we're fallen, right? And that fallen is when we, a lot of things transpired after that, but slowly but surely we've become very accustomed to encountering death, and now we're almost to a point where we want to dare death. We want to play chicken with death. I think it gives us a sense of power. It gives us a sense of freedom. It gives us a sense of living, at least by testimony from the people who engage in a lot of these adventurous, daredevil type of activities. And with that being said, I just, for the life of me, I can't figure out why anyone would pay $250,000 to sit cross-leg in a little makeshift submarine and go down 13,000 feet to see a ship that's been sunk for over 100 years. I mean, all I can say, with all due respect, is that we live in a fucking jerk-off society. I mean, this is the evidence of it. And I don't want to highlight this or single this out, but the normalcy around it. I mean, this sort of indifference around this type of culture that's grown out around all of us is strange to watch. Like when you hear that people would try and go down 13,000 feet to the bottom of the ocean, you have to ask yourself, what the fuck are those people thinking? When you hear that people want to go to the edge of space, I remember when the Red Bull guy did the farthest jump on record, and he goes to the edge of space. I don't know if it was really the edge of space. I mean, I don't know what the edge of space really even is, but that's how they promoted it. 80,000 feet, I think it was something like that. Maybe it was 100,000 feet in the air, 2 times as much as your average commercial flight. And he just, it went up in the balloon. I think it was a balloon, right? And then just, jumped out. And I believe he made it. But I just don't understand it. I mean, maybe I'm just a little bit egotistical. Maybe I'm a little bit self-indulged. Maybe I'm a little bit in love with my own life. Maybe I'm a number of things. I don't know. You decide. But I like being alive. And I say that because I think alongside this sort of daredevil, adventurous, life-risky behavior, there is a real thread of anti-human and almost anti-life, or a rejection or resentment of life itself that starts to rear its ugly head. And certainly we see a lot of evidence towards that with the things that we put up with as citizens, with the things we let the corporatocracy either tell us, sell us, or make us believe. We see a lot of it, right? I mean, we have trouble loving ourselves, and that's one of the root issues of our governance. That's one of the root issues that, is keeping us from self-governance. Yeah, a lack of faith, a crisis of leadership, but also self-love, a genuine self-love, a genuine self-appreciation, and a self-appreciation that stems from a gratitude towards the Most High. I mean, we really have a problem with this, and we show it. We show it in all things we do, but it sort of hits a peak when you talk about people getting into a fucking submarine and going 13,000 feet down into the ocean to look at the Titanic shipwreck. I mean, what the fuck do you really want to see? As the whole story unfolded, I said to people, number one, I just don't take risks like that. I know I told the story about me going out on the jet ski, and that was only about 150 yards offshore, and even that seemed like it was a unnecessary risk. And I wanted the young boys to have some fun, and they certainly wanted to go out into the ocean. So I didn't want to let my fears or my reason, get in the way of their freedom to choose to be able to do some of the things they want to do as young men. Now they went out safe and sound. They came back safe and sound. And in fact, myself and the sixth grade team went down to Dallas, Texas this past weekend, where I played at the Big Three. They played in a tournament during this weekend as well. And they went 1-3. The last game that they lost on a game-winning free throw. And the first game was called off due to some hostile interactions between some of the parents and the refs and so on and so forth. But that type of stuff happens all the time in youth sports. And then the other game we lost was a game we lost to a kid who was in the sixth grade and actually dunking the basketball. I mean, it was kind of freaky to watch. Tell you this, when I was in the sixth grade, I was not dunking the basketball. Later on in my seventh grade year, yeah, I started dunking the basketball. I was just getting the ball over the rim. But in sixth grade, that's pretty early to be dunking. This kid was about 6'6". And they also had another very good guard. I think it was on Tyrese Maxey's program. They had another very good sixth grade guard who was probably one of the best all-around players and more advanced, mature players that I've seen this entire season. And we only lost by 8 points. So it was a good showing. And the reason I mention it is because these kids, it's fun to watch these kids come together and go out of town and grow together and experience the world and start to form that bond. And it start to show in their teamwork out there on the court, playing against better and better competition. And our season isn't done yet, but I'm just having such a ball with the young men and being able to be a role model for them and help take care of them. And not only with basketball, but just in life, it's a special honor to be a coach. I now understand, what it was like for all the people who coached me and how special that is. So, when we were in Miami or Fort Lauderdale, I didn't want to let my fears get in the way of the kids being able to experience some things they want to. So they went out into the ocean and, they came back safe. And, we went on a huge road trip to Dallas and everybody came back safe. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't go out of your house. I mean, don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to tell people they should live in a bubble. Live your life. Live your life. Do what you want to do. You're free. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you. So if you want to swim 13,000 feet down into the ocean, or if you want to swim my way out past the buoy, or if you want to go live in Mars, or if you want to go visit the moon, or if you want to, go to some deep undiscovered cave with 3 hours of oxygen in a little metal tank on your back, be my fucking guest. But I'm going to question why. I mean, we have to start to ask certain questions of what the fuck are we doing? What are we even up to here? I'm starting to be a little concerned. I mean, every time I'm on Instagram, there's some jerk off climbing the side of a building with no harness, or there's some person skydiving with no chute, or there's somebody out there running and jumping off of a cliff and diving into, some body of water, whatever the case may be, paragliding and all of it. I mean, how, what a slap in the face to God. I mean, what a rejection of God at the most fundamental level, that you can't find enough value, enough charity, enough gratitude to just being able to wake up in the morning, put 2 feet on the stand up, put 2 feet on the ground, walk around, go get in a car, go to work, have a job you like, hopefully, come home, be with a woman. I mean, even just the miracle of being, just the pair bonding of men and women. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I just love women and I appreciate women in this way. But even the fundamental interaction between men and women in the human experience. Now, I can't speak for other animals on the planet. I mean, certainly there are other animals on the planet who have sex and they have encounters with the opposite sex. But I think there's a little uniqueness to the way that we humans do it, I would say. I mean, just the consciousness alone of humanity and human beings gives sex and intimacy between men and women a unique twist. No pun intended. But being able to be with a woman, being able to procreate, have children, watch children grow up, spend time with children, the joy and the wonder that you can see in a child's eyes, for your children to be healthy and not be plagued by some disease, to be able to eat food, to be able to, take from the earth, for the earth to be able to provide and us to be able to take from the earth and nourish ourselves. These fundamental things, and that's just a short list. To be able to have sunlight, I mean, there's no shortage of miracles that is the human existence. And we have such a lack of existential gratitude, such a deep, deep lack of gratitude for the things we have. And it's showing. It's showing. And then look, the submarine is just one example. And it's an example that made the headlines. So it's not, I don't mean to single these people out, but it is a great example. Why on earth would you get into a tiny man-made submarine to go 13,000 feet down into the ocean to see a ship that wrecked 100 years ago? What do you think you're going to see? I mean, we can get into the whole theory about how the Titanic sunk and that rabbit hole, which greatly points to the inception of the Federal Reserve and some very powerful corporatists who had a vested interest in the outcome of the Titanic or the outcome of certain individuals who happened to be on the Titanic, and so on and so forth. And that'd be a whole nother episode. I don't want to get into that now, or at least not right this second. I certainly do think there's some merit, and it's not beyond me being who I am, being what I've seen, what I've heard, what I've listened to. It's not beyond me that the Titanic sinking would be something of a nefarious plot. Certainly, if you look at the central bank today and how it operates and how it funds wars, how it's funding a war in Ukraine that could potentially become a nuclear war, and seems to be unabashedly proud of the way that it's taken its balls out and drug them across the face of every free person in the world. It certainly isn't a stretch of the imagination to think that people are capable of that sort of thing. But I don't want to talk about that right this second. I'm stuck on why on earth would you go down there to see this thing? Why? I mean, look, I even extend the olive branch. Let's say that the ship you were in was panoramic, had a panoramic view, right? So let's say you get into a little ship or a little submarine and whatnot, and they found some special way to keep the submarine pressurized or with oxygen, and it was completely open. So you could really see 360. Now that'd be some pretty cool shit. I wouldn't do it still. I mean, me personally, Royce White, I wouldn't go down. I wouldn't care if they found a way for me to be able to swim out there in the deep, in 13,000 foot depths with no worry of sharks or oxygen or whatever the case may be. I'm not going, right? And part of me not going is my faith. I mean, if God wanted me to be 13,000 feet down in the ocean, I'd probably have gills and fins. Just saying. But hey, that's just the way I look at the world. Don't know what anybody else thinks. Clearly, people would disagree with that, quite clearly. But I mean, if you look at the submarine that they went down in, the window's about this big. I mean, talk about risk versus reward analysis. I mean, holy shit. Well, what, it dawns on me that people are either radically depressed and self-loathing, and in a very, very complex and metaphysical way, or people have too much time on their hands. People have way, way too much time on their hands. I mean, I couldn't imagine it. Spending $250,000. Again, to put this in perspective, your average American family can't put $500 cash together in a crisis. And $500 cash doesn't even get you a lot. Your average American family can't even put a small amount of money together in a crisis that really isn't even a lot when you think about the value of the dollar. Okay. Imagine that we've come to a place where the everyday average American citizen is so detached, so far away from our elite counterparts, that we have people who work 2-3 jobs, can barely make ends meet working 2-3 jobs, and yet we have billionaires who spend $250,000 to put themselves in a metal death trap and go to the bottom of the unknown, bottom of the ocean to view a ship that already sank 100 years ago. Now, let's say, first of all, let's just think rationally. This is how irrational it is. Let's say a boat had sunk and there were people on the boat and there was a rescue mission. It wouldn't even be feasible to go on a rescue mission at 13,000 feet, because once you cross a certain depth, everybody on the ship will have died. Their body's not meant to take the pressure at that depth. Probably a sign that we shouldn't be down there in the first place. I mean, if your human body can't take the natural physical elements of the place where you are, you probably should not be there. This is the arrogance of man. This is the outgrowth of a scientific sort of technocratic arrogance. We want to find a way to play God. We want to find a way to up the ante. We want to find a way to reject the charity and grace and things that we've been given to, try and venture into the world of God himself. Is there not a general lack of gratitude in that? Are you guys following? If God wanted us 13,000 feet, down below, if God wanted us to adventure around at 13,000 feet down in the ocean, he would have given us gills. He would have given us fins. And the same, and in all fairness, I think that's my aversion deep down. Fundamentally, I think that's my aversion to flying. I mean, I know airplanes are generally safe. Don't get me wrong. There are many more car crashes. Your chances of surviving in a car crash are much greater than your chances of surviving in a plane crash, but your chances of being in a plane crash are much less than being in a car crash. So those numbers and statistics get a little skewed, and depending on how you look at it. Myself personally, I just don't want to be on a plane that's going down, because I'm not in that much of a rush. And the normalcy around airplanes themselves is kind of a little anti-human. It's not only is it anti-human, it's anti-gratitude, right? I loved, I think it came into clarity for me this weekend driving to Dallas. because I loved driving to Dallas. You get on Minnesota, on 35W in Minnesota, and it's a straight shot down to Dallas, Texas. And I loved driving through rural Iowa and Kansas and Oklahoma. You know, we're right there in that Cyclone Alley, and hoping that the summer weather, is favorable to us. And it was. On the way back, we just missed a storm coming through Oklahoma. I mean, we were on the tail end of it. And it made me appreciate storm chasing, which is another kind of strange, thrill-seeking activity, right? I know they say, oh, we got to be able to chase the storms so we can tell people when tornadoes are coming, or to brace for severe weather and whatnot. But the one tornado that hit in Joplin, Oklahoma recently, some years back, I think, it happened so fast, the sirens didn't even go off. It's Mother Nature. I mean, man is mistakenly arrogant when it comes to trying to outscience Mother Nature. And I guess the same thing could be said along the lines of climate change and certainly trying to go live on other planets. Not that it's not possible, but the utmost care and the utmost skepticism is really warranted. But again, I love driving through the country. I took a road trip to West Virginia with my grandfather, Frank White, when I was a young boy, and I loved it. I loved being in the car and just seeing the countryside. And I'm really considering doing a sort of nationwide tour, in a car, in a truck, on a bus, in the near future. And I'm even considering doing a walk across the country, because there's something about it. I mean, there's something that's going awry here. There's something that's off about our gratitude for the small things in the world, the small things in our existence. And, you know, again, the airplanes even. I mean, if God really wanted us to be 30,000 feet in the air, maybe he would have given us wings. He doesn't even want the birds up there. There are not even birds that fly around at 30,000 feet. Maybe we're not supposed to be up there. I don't know. I mean, I honestly, and again, maybe I'm completely fucking wrong. Maybe I'm completely fucking off. But there's something going on. There's something to it. And I think what there is to it that makes me uncomfortable is it's not that flying in an airplane is wrong. It's not that scuba diving is wrong. It's that man seems to never be satisfied. And the way that the scientists and the technocrats want to promote it is that man's lack of satisfaction, man's lack of contentment is natural to us, right? That man's lack of contentment with his existence, with the gifts that have been given to him, is completely natural. That this curiosity or this need to venture into the unknown, to continue to try and discover and push forward and push the boundary and approach the front door of being gods ourselves, that whole thing is completely natural. And there's a great, great heresy in that. For all my Christian brothers and sisters out there, for all my brothers and sisters out there who believe in a one true living God, there is great heresy, and this is a root heresy. Man's lack of contentment is not natural. Man's lack of contentment stems back to original sin. This is what we have to come to grips with. This is the fundamental issue of our existence. This is the greatest existential issue of our time and any time before us, is that we've all sort of bought into the devil's trick. The devil's trick is, hey, your curiosity is natural. This is how God made you. Don't you see how comfortable it feels for you to do this, for you to pursue these things? Your desires and your pursuits are natural to you. Don't reject those. This is how God made you. And if God doesn't like it or God's unhappy with it, then he shouldn't have made you that way, right? This is satanic. And what I'm showing you is, you know, when you talk about the prominence or prevalence, the prominence or prevalence or the outgrowth or uptick in satanic culture, satanic symbolism, satanic representation, when you talk about the uptick in these things or the uprising of these things right now in society, we don't have to look at where it's blatant. We see where it's blatant. It's blatant with our kids. It's blatant in pop music. It's blatant in pop culture. It's blatant in the White House even right now. It's blatant all over the place. But do we really need to go there to see it? No, we need to go to the fundamental issue of it within ourselves. Because once we tackle that root issue, that root tie to satanic thinking, then it becomes much easier to reject it. And right now, society writ large is having trouble rejecting Satanism and devil worshiping and sort of a devil allegiance, because we haven't weeded it out of our own soul. We haven't weeded it out of our own lives, out of our own worldview, out of our own thinking. We haven't weeded it out. And part of the reason we haven't weeded it out is because we've been told great stories about why it's completely natural. It's completely natural to want to become merged with the robots. Neuralink. It's natural. This was the natural progression of science. No, there's nothing natural about it. No, it's completely unnatural, for sure. And it may end up being convenient. It may end up allowing you to access information quicker. It may end up allowing you to follow your impulses easier. It may end up being a way to cut out some of the decision making, avoid certain responsibilities and accountabilities of your actions and your thoughts even. May be able to do that for you, but it is not natural. That doesn't make it natural. See, and again, when we talk about root issues, one of the root issues is that we believe in convenience. Science and technology's claim to fame, science and technology's entire sales pitch is about convenience, about making things more convenient for mankind, making things easier. But there's an entire counter narrative there that things don't necessarily need to be easier. They shouldn't, and even more so, maybe they shouldn't be easier. Maybe things are better a little difficult. But slowly and surely, we continue to tumble down this slippery slope where everything is predicated around the increase of convenience. It's convenient to go to the airport. It's convenient to go to the airport and go through security and hop on a plane, and you're somewhere in 2 hours when if you had been in a vehicle, in a car, it would have taken you 15 hours or 12 hours. Back in the day, if you were on a horse, it would have taken you 2 days, right? Before that, if you were on foot, you didn't really go places that were that far. Because why? I don't have any business there. This goes back to this sort of cosmopolitan, or this sort of cosmopolitan, omnisexual, globalist mentality. And it is a distinct difference between nationalists and globalists, because your nationalists don't really, they don't really have this obsession with world traveling or thrill seeking or the collection of experiences and moments to need to be able to share with the rest of the world. That's not really an MO for the nationalist mindset. In general, some exceptions. But everybody I see on Instagram now wants to go to Turks and Caicos and find some cliff where they can hook up their GoPro or their GoPro stick or whatever the case may be and run off the cliff and dive into the water. And there's just this general sense of, what's the next big thing I can do? What's the next small thing you can do? What's the next small thing you can accomplish? What's the next small thing you can be a part of? For me, it's coaching. It's the appreciation of being able to spend time with my son and other young men his age and be able to teach them, to be able to role model for them, to be able to help take care of them, to be able to teach them a game, a great game, the great game of basketball, and teach them life lessons through the great game of basketball. This is a small thing that I've chosen to do that right now is more gratifying to me than anything that somebody else would, much more gratifying than running for Congress, much more gratifying than playing in the Big Three, Much more gratifying than sitting here and having a growing successful podcast. Much more gratifying than playing at Iowa State. It's much more gratifying because it's a small thing, and I've started to see that the root issue is the lack of appreciation and gratitude for doing the next small thing. And all of us kind of reject doing the next small thing. And that's why elites who have brainwashed us and shown us this sort of arrogant, self-absorbed, egotistical worldview sit back and laugh when we give up our rights. They sit back and laugh when we give up our rights in pursuit of something that we'll never have anyway. Most of us. Most of us will give up our rights and our freedoms in pursuit of a thing that most of us will never have anyway. That's been shown to us. This posh, yuppie, omnisexual, cosmopolitan, world traveling, globalist. We see it. I know you all see it on the internet. Just put in the hashtag travel on the internet and you'll see this sort of cosmopolitan, omnisexual internet phenomenon. And it's all radical materialism. Well, it's partly radical. Part of it is a rejection of God and gratitude and the basics and the essentials of human life. But another part of it is radical materialism. Another part of it is just pride and ego. I want to be seen doing something. It matters what people think that I'm doing. It matters what people see me doing. It matters where people see me going, where people see me take pictures, so on and so forth. I don't get it. I just don't get it. So bored, so curious. You get into a submarine and go 13,000 feet down in the ocean to look at a ship that sunk 100 years ago. You're never going to know what happened. And I could even see people saying, hey, we want to know more about why the Titanic sunk. Why? Why? There's cruise ships that capsize. There's cruise ships bigger than the Titanic that capsize and go down right now. In the last month, maybe. In the last couple of months. Happens all the time. And we know exactly why those ships went down. So why? Why? What is it doing? What does it mean for, unless you say or think, hey, maybe there was a nefarious reason why the Titanic sunk, and you want to get to the bottom of who was behind it. But who would really make the claim that that's what that type of mission is meant to do? It's not. It's not. Whoever it was that may have been behind the Titanic sinking in the first place, and if it was a nefarious plot that had to do with some type of corporate interest or international financial and banking interest, if that was the case, nobody wants to really discover that. Because we don't really need to go down and see the Titanic to verify that the people who run those industries are corrupt enough to do something like that. Why? Because we're going to nuclear war in Russia right now over money, over politics, over power. We're going to war and potentially nuclear war with Russia right now over banking, over finance, over lies, over history, over science, over technology. We're doing that right now. We don't need to go down to the Titanic to understand that the international banking cartel can be nefarious. No. We can just turn on CNN and see the proof of that right there. We see all the evidence we need. You want to go 13,000 feet? And here's the kicker. You go 13,000 feet down in the ocean and you get lost. For the life of me, I don't understand how you get lost. I don't understand why you would go, as soon as you get below a level where you can't survive out in that part of the ocean or get back up to the surface quick enough to get oxygen. As soon as you plan a trip or a mission that far, you should already have a tracker. There should be a way to track you. There should be a GPS, and I mean a GPS that doesn't go out. There should be something that maintains your location. I mean, to go for there not to be is almost, quantifiably like suicidal in some ways. And I know that's part of the thrill of it. I get it. It's fucking weird to me, guys. I'm just going to tell you. And it's not an anomaly. It's not super common. It's not everybody, but it's enough people to start to make me question, what are people really thinking about? And then you hear some people say, oh, I'd love to go down to the bottom of the ocean, or I'd love to go to space. Would you? Well, let's play a thought experiment for a moment here. First, let me finish on the submarine thing. If you're going to go down that far, people should be able to know where you are. I would never go down that far anyway, but at least if I was to strategize what would make sense for people who are going to go on those type of adventures or those type of, I don't know what they call it, missions, there should be something to track you. Then you get lost and the entire world needs to come to a halt, to mourn, to be sad. To be sad. Now we have to send a rescue party out and the entire world is collaborating to come find this one submarine. France is sending special technology and to find this one submarine for these 5 people. You're fucking kidding me. I mean, give me a fucking break, These people are assholes. I'm sorry. I'm going to be the one to say it. These people are assholes, these people who go climb the side of a mountain and get trapped up there, and now the fucking National Guard or some rescue service has to come put themselves in danger to try and rescue you. I don't even think we should rescue people who do this shit for leisure. I know that sounds harsh. I know it sounds harsh. But it just dawns on me that we're come to a time that's so serious and we spend so much time, energy, and resources on the most ridiculous stuff. Every time one of you fucking jerk-offs tries to go, and I saw a video the other day of people climbing Mount Everest. There was a woman in a little group that were climbing Mount Everest, and there were dead bodies sliding down the side of the mountain. And the woman was screaming. She was, oh my God, right? She was screaming to God because she was seeing, probably for the first time in her life, dead bodies just sliding down the side of a mountain in quantity, not just a few, but multiple dead bodies. And I guess this is common for the side of Mount Everest. I guess so many people die on the journey to try and climb Mount Everest that if you're trying to make the climb, you're likely to see dead bodies as like mile markers, right? That's what they say is like there's a couple dead bodies every couple of miles and stuff like that. And I read the book Everest too. I thought it was a great book. When I was young, I read the book. There was a book called Everest where a guy, basically wrote down and documented his journey to the top of Mount Everest. And I thought it was a great book. And I get it. I understand the feeling to have that personal sense of achievement where you've done something that only so many people have ever been able to do. Or maybe it's just a goal you had for yourself. But why are our goals so grandiose? Why are our goals so lofty? Why are our goals not more humble? Why are our goals so disproportionate in our lives? It's like, why the fuck would you want to climb Mount Everest? Somebody out there tell me. I mean, maybe I'm way off here, but don't you have something better to do than to risk your life just to climb a mountain to say you did it? Just to say you did it. And then when you get trapped up there, somebody's got to come try and rescue you? Give me a fucking break. Every time one of you guys, one of you people, goes deep cave diving and something goes wrong down there. I remember the story from Donald Cowboy Cerrone, and, he found his way out of the cave on his own, but he could have surely just died down there had he not. If you haven't heard that story, you should go listen to it. And he talks about, deep scuba diving where he actually is cave diving and getting lost or losing his line down there and not knowing which way is up because it's so dark. And thankfully he found his line and was able to pull himself back up, but he was on limited oxygen. I mean, to me, these people are assholes. with all due respect to Cowboy Cerrone, and I think his career was great. I'm certainly a fan of him in MMA and the UFC and the shit that he's done. Had some incredible fights. I enjoyed him. He's contributed a lot to mixed martial arts. I respect him. But let's just get down to brass tacks now. All you people who are doing this shit you're fucking weird. You're fucking weird, and you're ungrateful, and ultimately you're assholes. You want to climb the side of a fucking building, and when you fall off the fucking building, now you traumatize everybody that's down there on the ground watching. Scar them for life. You fall fucking 80 stories off the side of the building and crack your fucking skull wide open on the pavement there. Your body blows into 6 pieces. What are you doing? What are you doing? Just tell me. Just tell me what we're doing. What are we up to here? 5 people get into a submarine and go to 13,000 feet down into the ocean to look at a ship that's been sunk for over 100 years. For what? And then the whole entire world's in an uproar. They got to come find you. Fuck off. Just fuck off. Fuck right off. Respectfully. Just fuck right off. Right? And it's the same thing with the Mount Everest thing. You see these dead bodies sliding down. And the question I have is, if you're climbing Mount Everest, for example, and you see dead bodies start to slide down, don't you turn around and go back? I mean, and again, I say, it's like people will say, oh, well, some people aren't scared of death. Yeah, but are you willing to die for anything righteous? I mean, with the number of people who are involved in these sort of daredevil activities, you would think that there would be a huge uprising of people who were willing to die on behalf of their nation, on behalf of citizenship, on behalf of the corruption, the outgrowth of corruption in our nation, in our country, in our government, in our security, in the security or intelligence community, or any number of other things. You would think there'd be so many people willing to stand up and die for that. And it's the same thing I think about with the Black community, see? And there's a correlation. And maybe this is why I'm interested in it, because us as Black people, we are willing to lay our lives on the line. Let's talk about Black men. But vicariously Black women too, because a lot of Black women, or some Black women, date Black men that are involved in this type of lifestyle. And I come from the streets myself, so I understand it. And I don't want to put it all on young Black men, because you can look at the strategic build of the city and the placement of liquor stores and gun stores and start to make out how the culture within these deeply blue Black communities really isn't of their own doing. There's a tad bit of social engineering that's at work there. But at the end of the day, every human being has its own consciousness, and with that has their own self-governance that's possible. And we've certainly rejected that in the Black community enough to see an ongoing crisis or tragedy of Black on Black crime between young Black men. And young Black men, some Black men, too many young Black men show that they're willing to sacrifice and lose their life for any number of stupid ass things. I mean, completely stupid. I mean, I know young Black men that have been shot and killed, or shot and killed somebody over the stupidest shit. Just fucking stupid. Usually it's over some girl. If it's not over some girl, it's some jealousy or it's some pride or ego, or I might have bumped a guy in the nightclub or in the party and he didn't say sorry quick enough, or I got the mean mugging him, and we all got to be tough. And now the toughness, when we used to actually go outside and box hand to hand, now then it became I got to have a gun. Then it became I got to have an automatic weapon, and pretty soon it was I'm not going to walk up and shoot you. I'm going to shoot at you in a car that's moving in a neighborhood full of whoever is out there at the time. And, if I shoot a little girl, so be it. I remember one of the OGs in the community losing his daughter getting hit by a stray bullet when we were coming up. And it happens often. And that OG was very gracious at the time. He didn't want to see any retaliation. He spoke about that in the community, that he was very serious about there not being any retaliation. And I think he sort of understood that, his own his own life and his own contribution, and whether you believe in karma or destiny or sin or whatever the case may be, that wrath is a real thing, and punishment is a real thing, and atonement are real things, and at some point the perpetuation of violence just becomes a snowball that consumes everyone, or it consumes a lot of people. Black people have been brainwashed into a sort of willingness to kill each other or risk their own life for the stupidest shit. What if we had that same mentality towards sacred honor? What if we had that same mentality towards national honor? What if we had that same mentality towards our families, towards our communities? What if we had that same mentality towards the value of our own self-governance? What if we had that same commitment, that same buy-in, that same willingness to sacrifice ourselves for the things that we believe in that are good? Not drugs, not alcohol, not reputation of being a tough guy or so on and so forth. This is stuff I say in the neighborhood. And be honest, I grew up and know real gangsters. I have family and friends who are real gangsters. And I don't say that in a bragging way. It just is what it is. We are who we are. We are where we come from. You can't outrun your history, and you should never try and rewrite it. You can start a new life. You can change your life. You can do something new. You can do something fresh, but never try and change your history. Never try and run from your history or rewrite your history, because it's not possible. You end up just lying to yourself about reality. And the reality is, I know plenty of gangsters. And I would tell all of them the same thing. They sat down and we talked about it, and we talked about the community and what's wrong with the community. It's not that young black men feel a sense of territorial nature over the place where they live. It's not that young black men want to protect themselves or the people around them, their loved ones, or their other friends that may also be young black men, or they feel the sense of threat from other young black men, and sometimes they have to stand up for themselves and not allow themselves to be bullied. No, all of that is none of that. None of that is a problem. The problem continues to be that energy isn't focused on something meaningful. It's not focused on something profound and deep. And if it was, all of the net energy that goes into the petty violence, the tragic violence, but over petty reasons that happens in black communities all across the country, could really save this country. And I think Ice Cube understands that. I think Donald Trump understands that. I certainly think the great Steve Bannon understands that. And I understand it, and I'm a huge proponent of it. But there's something there that correlates. There's something there that's the same between you, if you want to look at it this way on a deeper level, there's a reason why the suicide rate is twice the homicide rate. But death is still death, and harm against oneself and harm against someone else, are just cousins, really, right? There's a correlation. That propensity to do violence toward oneself or to do violence towards another is two sides of the same coin. And while suicide is pretty constrained to white men, you could say that gun violence is more constrained to young black men in this country. Two sides of the same coin, right? Why do we want to rock climb? Why do we want to rock climb at all, let alone without a harness? I just don't get it. You just don't have enough to do. You just don't have an appreciation for the little things, for the basics. And that lack of appreciation is not by accident. It's by design. It's by scientific and technological design. The lack of gratitude, the outgrowth of ungratefulness in our society, is a symptom, is a strategic was a strategic plot by people who are obsessed with science and technology. And the more and more we buy into it, the more and more we're going to start to see tragedy befall at a greater level. Let me run this experiment on you. And I actually think Elon Musk, in the last few weeks, I've been impressed with some of the things that he's said and done. I don't trust him. And I don't think, because you're only good or bad by comparison, there's a lot of legitimacy to that that saying, you're only good or bad by comparison. Because you're only good or bad by comparison, and compared to a lot of other people, Elon Musk is halfway rational, especially when it comes to certain cultural issues, cultural wedge issues. It's easy for him to stand out from the crowd and just saying some very sane and logical things. But when you get deep enough, you still have to worry about anybody who wants to be involved in putting chips in people's brains. But I will give Elon Musk his credit where it's due. Again, I think if Alex Jones isn't let back on Twitter, I got to question Elon Musk. I got to question who this guy is, because he's certainly not, a stalwart of free speech. And he's not really even anti-establishment. It's like, Elon, pull your head out of your ass. You're one or two things away from them using the precedent they set and suing Alex Jones to sue you next and to silence you, or to trump up some bullshit charges or trump up some bullshit evidence against you that the whole country will say, we can never trust Elon Musk again for this one thing. But let's play this thought experiment out. Everybody wants to go live on Mars, right? People are not talking about going to live on Mars. Elon Musk wants to send people to Mars. The technology is supposedly on the way to be able to live in Mars or to be able to live in space habitats. I saw another little video the other day of a scientific or a rendition of a sort of space habitat where there's like, I don't know, I think it was like maybe 1 million or so people could fit on one of these space habitats. Pretty impressive if they can do it, to be able to just have a habitat that lives out in space. Oof. Would be scared to see how dangerous it is out there in the great big void of space without something like an atmosphere and a moon to catch debris, dangerous debris hurling through the cosmos. But hey, that's just shit I think about. I'm no scientist, engineer, astronaut, or physicist. But it would seem to me floating around out there in space is much, much more dangerous and unpredictable than one would think. But hey, let's say you can go to Mars. What's to stop you and, let's say, I don't know, 10,000 other people flying to Mars? What's to stop them from stopping the spaceship mid-flight, opening up the door, and just throwing you the fuck out? In a sci-fi movie or in a sci-fi cartoon, that'd probably be something more along the lines of a vacuum, right? Some type of vacuum or something like that, right? But I mean, it's possible. And who would know, right? That's the other thing I was thinking about the other day. Who would know? Let's say they get you up there in space and they just decide to kill everyone. Where they're going now with artificial intelligence and being able to replicate people's voice and being able to create holograms of people and all this other cool, fun technological advancement. Who's to say they don't kill everybody on the ship and show a artificial, an AI video rendition or some type of holographic rendition of 10,000 people sitting on the ship, still enjoying the voyage, still enjoying the trip. Hey, everybody back at home, we're 3 years into our voyage to Mars, and we want to say that everybody's here having a great time. Everybody's enjoying it. Meanwhile, they dumped you off in space 3 clicks from the moon. Three 3,000 clicks from the moon. I don't know what the distance would actually be, but I mean, who's to stop them? Who's to stop them? I mean, I don't think people have thought this shit all the way through. And it's so easy this is what I'm really trying to get at here. The risk of it is so easy to see. It's so obvious. Anybody who would sign up to go do something like that, you have to come to the conclusion, hey, you must not fucking love yourself, man. You must really, really not love yourself or love life. You don't have any gratitude. Because there's no fucking way I'm going to trust Elon Musk or anybody else to take me and my family or even just me way out into space for 3 years at a time. You got to be kidding me. I mean, you have to be fucking kidding me to think that's not remotely appropriate. It's not remotely something that any sane, logical, rational adult would entrust to another person. Where is our level of where's our skepticism? Here's $250,000. I'll get in a little man-made submarine and go down to the bottom of the ocean to see the Titanic. Sounds fun. Sounds great. It's going to be an awesome adventure. Are you fucking dumb? I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous, guys. I mean, we're way, way outside how about we get the federal government under control? Can we allocate some time to and see, here's the thing. Here's another thing. We spend so much time making the excuse that our governance and our self-governance are out of our control because the federal government has become this leviathan that nobody can tame or stop. But yet we have all this time for all these other random things. And it makes me just look right in the camera and say, we have a jerk-off society. We have a crisis of leadership. We have a crisis of faith, but we also have a jerk-off society. And people are lying to themselves. They're lying. I can't stand people who lie to themselves. Lie to me. Fine. That's fine. Lie to me. But tell yourself the fucking truth when you look in the mirror. Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to yourself and expect me to lie to myself on your behalf. I can't do that. That I can't do. It insults my intelligence, but even more so, it insults yours. Don't fucking lie, okay? The government is not some grandiose thing that's outside of our control. None of this is out of our control because none of it's without our consent. We continuously find a way to concede our rights and our freedoms to an outgrowth of science and technology that tries to promote itself as a pathway, as a gateway, as a fast track to convenience. And that convenience is always a net positive. That convenience is always a net gain. That convenience is always better than patience. That speed is the best. Faster internet. Faster internet. Wi-Fi. 5G. Nobody knows what 5G is doing. Nobody knows what 5G is doing. I know you can go right online for yourself and look up some of the theories from accredited expert sources that says that 5G is harmful to the human anatomy, harmful to the blood-brain barrier. That Wi-Fi connection, Wi-Fi waves, Wi-Fi is Wi-Fi itself, but 5G is harmful to the blood-brain barrier in the brain. I don't know. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. But without knowing whether or not it's true, I certainly know that the corporatocracy, the scientists, and the technocrats would not hesitate to sacrifice the overall health of people in whatever manner that takes shape to advance their own agendas and ambitions for society. We don't have time to save the country. We don't have time to protest nuclear war, but we have time to go to the club. We have time to go beef with some other black man in the neighborhood who lives 3 houses down from me, who lives 3 blocks down from me, who lives 10 blocks down from me. We have time to go beef and ride around the neighborhood and look for each other, look to shoot and kill each other, rob each other, carry that hate, do harm to each other, shoot little kids and other people in the crossfire, innocent bystanders. We have time for that, but we don't have time to put a check on our federal government. I mean, even if you want to get back to not having enough to do, if you're fucking bored out there, if you're really fucking, see, and it's not about the money. This is what I know, because there's so many ways to make money now. There's so many ways to make money now. The establishment actually knows that you are too busy and brainwashed to tap into the ways to make money. And that's another scam they're running on you. It's a scam they're running on black people, but that's a scam they're running on everybody. They're going to keep you high. Bred in circuses, Noah Yuval Harari. We're not going to teach you how to make money. We don't want you to know how to make money. That's why one of the few things you never learn about in your formative education is money. Never teach people about money in public school. You think that's by accident? You think it's by accident that your public school curriculum never really puts an emphasis on the management of money, the laws of money, the acquisition of money, keeping wealth, acquiring wealth, how to structure it? Why do they never teach you how to structure a trust or an LLC? Why do they never teach you about the tax code until you're in tax trouble? Why do they never teach you the law in general? Why do you have to go to a 4-year university before you can even go to law school? Why do you have to pay in and kick in to the establishment and the system before you can even learn the laws? Well, you really don't. You could actually go read the laws yourselves. But the point is there's no real emphasis, cultural emphasis on the most pertinent parts of our society, which are law and money, which is why lawfare is now being waged by the corporatocracy. It's not hard to see. Money, finance, and the law are the things that dominate and control our society on behalf of technology and science. Patents, lawsuits, liability, assets, mergers and acquisitions. I mean, these are all things that are kept out of the scope of your average American citizen, especially your black citizens, while Joy-Ann Reid says, hey, Republicans taught you guys the word inflation. You Negroes didn't even know about inflation until Republicans started talking about it. These are your leaders. These are your leaders. These are the people who you've entrusted the value of your citizenship to and the future of your family and your children, your legacy. You've entrusted to people who will just flat out lie to you. And don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to yourself and say the issue's too big for me to change it. The issue's too big for me to do anything. No. Too many individuals all across the country and all around the world are going to convince themselves that they're too small to affect change at that level. And when all of you individuals start to do it at the same time, you create a collective that is easy to dominate and manipulate. And that's exactly what we're looking at today. And I don't care if it's a submarine. I don't care if it's a motherfucker mountain climbing with no harness, free climbing, free soloing is what they call it. I think free solo. I don't care if it's a guy jumping out of an airplane with no chute. Now, the guy I saw doing that, he jumped out of the airplane with no chute, and the people who go up there with you, they had parachutes on, and so they would come down and they wrap their legs around you and grab you, and then they pop their chute and they bring you down to the ground safely. But who would trust that? I mean, who would actually trust? Who does these things? Why do you want to jump out of a plane 30,000? See, and this is what's funny about it. I can tell it's an enculturated sort of thing, because people who saw that I didn't like to fly on planes were all like, and you still see it today. Oh, you're scared. You can't fly on planes. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. It's irrational. Until they start making you wear a fucking mask to get on a plane. Until they tried to start making you be vaccinated to get on a plane. Until they started trying to tell you that that COVID is spread through, getting COVID particles in your eyeballs, right? Till they tell you need a vaccine card in order to travel. Then all of a sudden people reconsider. But the vast majority of people didn't. And what I'm saying is those of us who have that intuition towards the fallen nature of man and the waywardness of modern society, it's very easy for us to feel like we have that intuition when things are either not right themselves or they're an outgrowth of a mentality that's not quite right. Again, I'm not making any excuse. I'm not telling you don't fly. I'm going to fly this weekend in New York City. But now after this podcast, I may just drive. Hell, I may leave 2 days early and just stop in Ohio and maybe I'll visit East Palestine. See what's going on there with the trains that are supposed to work oh so well. I mean, we want to go to fucking Mars and we can't stop from spilling hazardous material in East Palestine, Ohio on a train derailment. These are the things that make me not trust the establishment, but make me not trust the science, make me not trust the experts and the accreditation and the whole process. It seems like a scam. And for the vast majority of Americans, they will live their lives and not become victims of that scam. The biggest scam is to keep you in a sort of perpetual bliss. And I understand that. But there will be people who are victims of that scam. And I certainly don't want to be one. And I know many people wouldn't want to be one, but many people won't even consider that there is a scam until they become a victim of it or until somebody they knows becomes a victim of it. Start with the skepticism, start with the understanding, start from the place that we are looking at a scam, that there is a scam. And whether or not you become a victim of it has a lot to do, is in great part going to be determined by whether or not you'll acknowledge that there's a scam to begin with. Getting vaccinated. I know a lot of people don't want to hear it. I know some of you out there were vaccinated. Some of you were caught up in the fear and the headlines and the mainstream media industrial complex and the medical industrial complex that was the vaccine was actually run by the military industrial complex. And now they want to blame Trump, and Trump doesn't want to back down off of it because, hey, now then the populace is so stupid. If I apologize for it, nobody will actually consider the fact that I'm a real estate guy. I'm a real estate mogul. When a pandemic breaks out from a lab in Wuhan where gain of function research, a very complex science that's dangerous to the point where many presidents before Donald Trump advised that we stop doing it altogether because it's so complex and so risky. Now I'm supposed to understand the full scope of a pandemic that stems from that? That's a tough ask. I don't necessarily blame Donald Trump. Not a fucking epidemiologist. He's not a fucking expert on viruses or coronaviruses or any type of viruses, let alone vaccines. He don't know. He's listening to the people in the administrative state who should be brought up on charges. They should be brought up on charges for their involvement and their participation in the gain of function research in the first place, but then they should also be brought up on secondary charges for their advisement to the president in a time of a national crisis. Fauci. And the military was running the vaccine. I mean, we got to take a strong look at what's going on here. God bless Robert Kennedy Jr. Protect that man. I know if you saw, but on the side of I write something on the side of my head every weekend in the Big Three. And last weekend it was Protect Robert Kennedy Jr. And people was, oh, Robert Kennedy Jr. soft on affirmative action now, and he's going the other way on some other things. And I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. Yes, I like a lot of the things that Robert Kennedy Jr. is saying. I like a lot of the things he's saying. I like a lot of the things that he's standing for. And I think he's very anti-establishment. I like what Cube and Joe Rogan had to say about RFK Jr. But my support of RFK Jr. and my saying protect RFK Jr. has nothing to do with anything he said thus far. My saying protect RFK Jr. has to do with the fundamental knowledge that somebody in the security state, somebody in the deep state, somebody in the administrative state participated in assassinating his dad and his uncle. And that all of the boomers, All of the 501c3, 401k boomers are still frozen in front of their fucking televisions when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And there was a simple message that was sent. If you poke too far, if you push too far, if you ask the wrong questions, if you take shit too far, we will take you out. That's why we should protect Robert Kennedy Jr. There's a wound, there's a gaping wound. There is an open wound that exists around the Kennedy name, around the Kennedy assassinations. A gaping wound. And the country can be healed while it exists. Not for some symbolic, spiritual reason. I mean, yeah, that is the case. I do think there are spiritual wounds. There are existential spiritual wounds that must be healed in order for certain things to move on and move forward in a constructive or positive way. But that's not it in this case. The wound that's open still from Kennedy being assassinated is that the security state and the deep state and the administrative state are still walking around with their balls dragging all over the ground, dragging them right across your face, telling you to enjoy it, telling you to say thank you. Say thank you, motherfuckers. My balls are dragging right across your face. You say that, you thank me. Because without our science and our technology, without our social engineering, without our plan for you, without our agenda, you'd be nothing more than a worthless slave or serf. You're a drone. You're nothing more than a little piece of energy meant to, another cog in the wheel, another cog in the machine, meant to continue to keep the whole thing moving. Your participation is ancillary. You're an NPC. You're a non-playable character. We got the controller. We got the controller of the submarine. You're just in the game. You're just a part of the game. An insignificant part of the game, a part of the game with no autonomy, a part of the game with no self-governance, a part of the game that doesn't have the right to question the establishment and the status quo because you don't have the power or the juice to follow through. If you want to follow through, we will kill you. That wound is still open, and that wound has nothing to do with anything RFK Jr. is saying, and it has nothing to do with anything Donald Trump is. Donald Trump and RFK 2024. Donald Trump, I'll say it again, Donald Trump and RFK 2024. The real American nationalist populist movement. Right there. Carrie Lake and I know Carrie Lake's still fighting in Arizona. And we love the great Carrie Lake. Love her to death. Special person. But we got to call in all the cavalry for this one. I love to see Carrie Lake up there as the press secretary. Oh, I would actually love to be the press secretary of the Trump Kennedy administration. Can you imagine a Trump Kennedy ticket? I mean, it's Trump and Kennedy. Are you kidding me? Money in the bank. Let them cheat that ticket. Let them cheat that ticket. And before that ever happens, before that ever comes to pass, they are going to go to work on RFK Jr. Don't be surprised if you start to hear allegations of sexual assault, sexual misconduct, some type of corruption. They'll maybe go after his finances or some type of tax deal, all of it. I mean, the Democrats are going to show you how much they really, really hate the Kennedys. The Uniparty is about to show you through their attack on RFK how much they really, really dislike the Kennedys, still to this day. Still to this day. But that ticket would be great, and Carrie Lake would be a great press secretary. Steve Bannon would be a great press secretary, although he wouldn't do it. I know he won't do it. But he would be a great press secretary. He doesn't really need to do it. But you need somebody up there at the podium, especially after the shit show that's been Jean-Pierre and Psaki and all these other weird, crazy puppet motherfuckers that they've had up there. The press secretary spot is supposed to be a spot of integrity and sanity and rational, reasonable interaction between the administration and the people of America, American citizens. That's what it should be. It means something. I know it's considered a fluff piece right now, and this greatly undermined the president, it's greatly undermined the White House, the presidency, and governance writ large in our nation. That position's supposed to mean something. And I would love to see Kari Lake be the press secretary for the Trump-Kennedy administration. Trump and Kennedy, 2024. These are the things that we need to spend our time doing. Let's stop wasting. I mean, sure, once we get the nation back on the right track, once we get it back to a place of sanity, sure, then we can go mountain climb, rock climb with no harness. Then we can go jump out of an airplane with no parachutes if you want to. Then we could go down 13,000 fucking feet into the ocean where there are no lights if you want to. You know, climb the side of a skyscraper, you know, with no parachute or no harness if you want to. Fine. I mean, you know, do coke, do blow, do whatever you want to do. I get it. But if you have any sacred honor whatsoever, we could use your fucking help. You know, we could use that type of enthusiasm. We could use that type of commitment, that type of relentlessness. We could use that type of self-sacrifice. We could use that. And guess what? The thing that we're going to ask you to do doesn't really come with the overt risk of falling from an 80-story fucking building and splattering all over the fucking sidewalk in front of your local residence. We're just going to ask you to participate. Make some phone calls, reach out to some people, give some time, spend some energy. Spend some energy trying to regain and recapture the reins of this great nation, because this great nation is the bastion of freedom. And I guarantee you this, when the scientists and the technocrats and the authoritarians and the totalitarians and the global elites take over, I mean, really take over, really get a stronghold really get a grip on society, you won't be able to do any of that shit. You won't be able to do any of that shit. You won't be able to fucking rock climb. You won't be able to fucking building climb. You won't be able to deep sea submarine explore. You won't be able to walk around the streets, let alone go walk in the national park reserves. You know? The cows are killing the environment, right? I mean, this is the herald of the time that's coming. The cows are killing the environment. Methane gas from cows farting is killing the climate. I guarantee you cows are not damaging the climate. That cows will not destroy the climate. But bullshit can certainly ruin a nation. That much I can say with certainty. Bullshit can ruin a nation. I said this the other day on Twitter, please, for the love of God Almighty, do not let these strange leftists and climate activists put butt plugs in our cows, okay? That sounds funny to you all, but seriously, the climate racket's completely out of control. They're going to kill the cows. They're killing them. They're planning on killing them. They're going to kill them. They're going to kill the cows. These are the things we have to get a grip on. You people don't even understand it's happening yet. You're going to go to your local watering hole one day, and there's not going to be any steak, or there's going to be mystery meat steak, or there's going to be steak that was grown in a laboratory, like the gain of function research that brought you a pandemic. And there's another one on the way. This has been another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio and sponsored by TireGet.com, powered by TireGet.com. You have to buy tires from somebody, you might as well buy them from us. Freedom of movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I'm your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota, for another episode of Please Call Me Crazy. We appreciate your viewership and your listenership today and in the future. The fight continues. Don't die a jerk off. And as always, Godspeed.